This is Edward. Leprosy has changed his life forever. And I'm Ross Velton. Unlike Edward, my life hasn't been affected by leprosy, so I've no idea how Edward's life has been. So I've come to Sri Lanka with the support of the Pulitzer Centre to try and find out. To do that, we need to visit Edward's home, here at the Hendala Leprosy Hospital. Edward was brought to the hospital when he was just 14. 72 years later and he's still here. It was built by the Dutch in 1708 and used to have hundreds of patients. Now fewer than 40 are left. Most of them are old like Edward, men and women who caught leprosy many years ago when there was little treatment. So they were packed off to an asylum, because back then hardly anything was known about a disease which people thought was a curse from God. Some things are clear about leprosy. We know it's caused by a bacteria which damages things such as skin and nerves. We know it's difficult to catch. We know that most human beings won't catch it at all because they've got a natural immunity to it. We also know leprosy can now be cured through multi-drug treatment. That cure came too late for the patients at Hendala. The disease had already caused physical deformities and their families didn't want them back. With nowhere else to go, they knew they'd spend the rest of their days at the hospital. The patients have tried to build lives for themselves inside Hendala's walls. Some of them have got married or become boyfriend and girlfriend, and many of the patients have taken up hobbies and pastimes. Some do the gardening and others used to make furniture and things like that.
How are you?
It's difficult to tell whether they're really happy with their lives.
You okay? Yeah, what have you been doing?
One thing that's frustrated me on this trip has been trying to find out the official name of the hospital. Some people spell Hendala H-E-N-D-A-L-A, while others swap the E for an A. I've been coming to the hospital for several days now, and each time I come I can't decide whether this is a place of hope or a place of sadness, whether for the patients the hospital has been a sanctuary or a prison, whether it's Hendala or Handala. So while the medical facts about leprosy are clear, it's a lot more difficult to say how the stigma of the disease has affected the people who have suffered from the disease. But when you speak to some of the doctors and nurses who live at the hospital and spend a lot of time with the patients, they'll tell you stories of lives wasted.
What did
you say to her?
I said I remember her even if she can't remember me.
Joy talked to me about her own memories of Hendala from when she worked here as a doctor in the 1970s. She invited me to come along on one of her visits to the hospital to say hello to the patients. It turns out Joy was so inspired by their courage and so depressed by the way society had treated them that she decided to spend her life helping people affected by leprosy in Jaffna, in the north of Sri Lanka. The disease has been spreading here since the end of a 26-year armed conflict in the north. While the bombs were falling, people like Kanagaraja were just trying to keep themselves alive. When the fighting stopped, he could finally think about his leprosy. By that time, though, it was too late. He was physically deformed and a social outcast. A lot of people in Sri Lanka will say there's less stigma surrounding leprosy these days. And in a way, it's true. For example, just outside the hospital in the town of Hendala, people affected by leprosy are living normal family lives. So perhaps the awareness campaigns are doing some good. But the changing attitudes won't give Edward his life back now. This old man's family is here, at Hendala.